I won. I won.
It's been a busy few months for President Donald J. Trump, trying to ban Muslim entrance to the United States, protests on the streets, Russian leaks of various kinds, Theresa May's visit, a national security advisor who lasted weeks, a threat to take the courts to court, a billionaire education secretary accused of buying her seat, feuding with a department store for daring to drop his daughter's fashion line.
Hurry up.
I'm only on day 19. War on the media, hiring people who forgot they'd met the Russians. A presidential address to Congress followed by a Twitter meltdown in which he accused Barack Obama of tapping his phone. A humiliation on healthcare. And a highly controversial budget. Ramming through his appointment to the Supreme Court, vowing to sort out North Korea, meeting China's leader. An airstrike in Syria, dropping the mother of all bombs on Islamic State. And an Easter egg hunt. As a reality TV star, Donald Trump may have been shallow, vain, and ignorable. But he is now unignorable. He comes to us 24/7. A global media phenomenon from the ultimate Big Brother house over there. For the past 100 days, the world has woken up thinking, what's he done now? I'm trying to find out if Donald Trump has a plan, or if he's just making up the most important job on earth as he goes along. What makes him tick, and what will his next 4 years mean for the US government?
Americans wanted to send a wrecking ball to Washington, and that's what they got.
For the media?
His base, they already agree with him in rejecting news reports in the media. Maybe they watch TV on mute and see him there looking presidential, and that's enough.
For America?
On a scale of 1 to 100, I would give Trump in the mid-90s for the first 100 days.
And for the world?
I'm worried about that 3 a.m. knock on the door to President Trump saying, I'm sorry to wake you, but something terrible's just happened and you have 5 minutes to make a decision.
When America went to the polls on November the 8th, the world held its breath.
So I would just say, take a breath like New Hampshire.
Political know-it-alls predicted victory for boring old Hillary Clinton. They were wrong.
When they started calling those states, they kept going red and red and red.
If you want to know why Trump won, the Republicans of Macomb, Michigan, America's closest swing state, are the people to talk to.
If we won Macomb, we won Michigan. If we won Michigan, we won the United States. Donald Trump has won the presidency. I'm going home and going to bed.
By the early hours, it was clear America had a new president.
God bless America.
And instead of a politician, he was a permatant plutocrat with immobile hair and wandering hands. His supporters went wild. 8 years ago, Obama had been greeted like a rock star. Well, Trump was a hope and change candidate too, and millions felt he spoke for them.
Maybe he wasn't our first choice, but we rallied around him because he's so principled and he constantly talked about the same issues. And if you see the distinct difference between the Trump administration and the Obama administration, he believes so firmly in the Constitution. Yes. He's such a patriot.
We want somebody that can speak for our people, can protect our kids, our faith, somebody that loves this country.
Donald Trump had a genius that no other politician or businessman that has run for president in the last 50 years has had. And it was all about giving the American people exactly what they want. And that is what he's doing, and that is what he's doing every time he upholds his campaign promise.
The world gasped and waited to see what on earth would happen next.
I have a feeling it's going to be beautiful.
Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute
the office of President of the United States.
The office of President of the United States.
And so on January the 20th, 2017, a new name was added to the illustrious roll call that runs from George Washington through Abraham Lincoln to Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and in the 45th President of the United States, Donald John Trump.
This American carnage stops right here and stops right now.
As he took the oath of office, Trump looked out, he said, over a sea of love. But some media killjoys pointed out that Obama's sea of love had been more like an ocean, and the first row of Trump's fledgling presidency blew up. The president's press secretary, Sean Spicer, we'll be seeing a lot more of him, got very narky.
Photographs of the inaugural proceedings were intentionally framed in a way, in one particular tweet, to minimize the enormous support that had gathered on the National Mall. These attempts to lessen the enthusiasm of the inauguration are shameful and wrong.
The BBC's North America editor, John Sopel, was there.
I went to Sean Spicer's first White House briefing on a Saturday evening, where he called us all in, berated us for our coverage of the inauguration, and said that we were wrong to say that Donald Trump didn't have the biggest audience ever for an inauguration.
Thank you guys for being here tonight. I will see you on Monday.
He refused to answer any questions and stormed out, and I was sitting next to the Guardian correspondent who'd previously been the Southern Africa correspondent, and he said, "Oh, it's just like being back in Zimbabwe."
Trump's inaugural was the largest audience ever.
So what most of us would regard as a fact, the Trump bunker considered merely opinion. Curious enough. But then a Trump spokesperson went on TV and it all got weirder.
It undermines the credibility of the entire White House press office on day one.
Don't be so overly dramatic about it, Chuck. You're saying it's a falsehood, and they're giving Sean Spicer, our press secretary, gave alternative facts to that. But the point remains.
Wait a minute. Alternative facts? Look, alternative facts are not facts. They're falsehoods.
Alternative facts wasn't just a nonsensical turn of phrase. It signaled something totally new about how Trump's White House planned to communicate with the American people. It had cut out the middlemen, so screw the mainstream media. Tara Palmieri is White House correspondent for Politico magazine. She's a rising star in the press pack, unless you're Press Secretary Spicer, that is, in which case she is, quote, an idiot with no real sources.
They'll think, we don't need you to carry our water, like convey our message for us. We have Twitter now. We can put our top senior officials on every single network. They don't want the filter. And frankly, like, Trump is really good at kind of like shaping the message every morning. And he knows that on Saturday, he will control the message on the Sunday shows by whatever he tweets on Saturday. It's just, it's brilliant.
As an outsider, it seems, the belief inside the White House is that if you're not with us, you're against us, and we don't need you.
When I worked at the New York Post, I used to deal with Trump a lot, and he would send stories back with red ink, circling adjectives he didn't like, writing notes. He's very involved. Even you see the way he communicates. Everything's amazing. Everything's great. Those are words you're not going to see in any respectable news outlet. It's going to be a beautiful health plan. You're not going to read that in a real reputable newspaper or see that on TV. So they are therefore the enemy and not supportive of him.
In other words, if you're not telling the White House version of the story, you're not worth listening to. The notion spawned a phrase that's dominated these first 100 days: fake news.
As you know, I have a running war with the media. They are among the most dishonest human beings on earth.
Suddenly, that little finger was pointing at almost every major news outlet.
I could name them, but I won't bother. But
you have a few sitting right in front of us.
I called the fake news the enemy of the people, and they are.
Fake? The fake news.
Fake news. It's fake, phony, fake.
The enemy within? It's everywhere.
Can I just ask you, thank you very much, Mr. President.
Where are you from?
BBC.
Okay. Here's another beauty.
It's a good line. Impartial, free and fair.
Yeah, sure.
Mr. President.
Just like CNN, right?
Aren't they right in their suspicion that the mainstream media were biased against Trump?
I'd put it differently. I think that some of the mainstream media are falling into the trap of allowing themselves to be painted as Trump's opposition. Trump loves having an opponent, whether it's lying Ted Cruz, little Marco Rubio, low-energy Jeb, or crooked Hillary, and now he's got the fake news media. We're not the opposition. We're there to hold politicians to account.
But who needs accountability when Trump is such a master at writing his own script?
He allows the press to really videotape him a lot, especially when he's working. It's almost like he wants a reality TV show going on inside the White House.
If I ever fell, would they be happy?
We see him signing executive orders, holding them up to show his signature. He looks like he is an executive president taking on all of these tasks, and he looks like he's working. That's a good visual. He's the reality TV president. He knows that substance doesn't matter. I mean, he knows that.
Substance does matter.
It does, but not when you're trying to communicate to a mass audience.
Yeah.
And his base, they already agree with him in rejecting, you know, the news reports in the media. Maybe they watch TV on mute and see him there looking presidential, and that's enough.
Clever thing to have worked out.
Right. Exactly.
Is it possible that Trump, the reality star, got something right that in our trivial, visual age, just looking presidential is half the job? It's a belief he would test to its limits in the coming months.
Come on, come with me. Good. Thank you.
Looking presidential means looking decisive, and that means to be seen doing things. So Trump, the get-it-done CEO, swung into action with a series of so-called executive orders.
Should I give this pen to Andrew? Dow Chemical. I think maybe, right?
He cancelled a long-planned trade deal and ordered construction of the border wall, reversed climate change policy, and got a room full of men to watch as he ended US aid to international abortion counselling.
An executive order is an expression of intent. It's something the president wants to have done.
It doesn't need a vote, but it does need to be within the law. So whatever the president wants to do, it still has to work within the structure of American governance. That's the legislature, i.e. Congress, the judiciary, judges and courts, and the executive, the president and his staff. It's a system set out by Alexander Hamilton in the Federalist Papers.
In paper number 70, Hamilton talks about why a powerful president is important. He says, energy in the executive is a leading character in the definition of a good government. It is essential to the steady administration of the laws.
Well, Trump's certainly got energy. So is it going to produce good government?
Increasingly, the American presidency, certainly during the Obama years and maybe now during the Trump years, is taking the route of going around the legislative action and doing more and more by executive order.
Theodore Roosevelt Malloch is an economist who served under presidents. He's seen as Trump's pick for a top ambassadorial job, and he's a big fan.
And it is divisive as a mechanism, isn't it?
Can be, because Congress feels like you're obviously going around them. But it is also, you know, from a expedience point of view, a way to efficiently get things done. Many CEOs have that kind of mentality. I'm not saying it's command and control. It's you know, not authoritarian to use the term, but it is the kind of view that a chief executive decides. And you might listen to a few board members, but basically in the end you decide.
Wisconsin, I love Wisconsin.
Donald Trump promised the voters he'd be the boss of America, Inc. But can you really run a country as you would a company? Well, America, the world, and Donald Trump himself were about to find out.
Who would Chief Executive Trump appoint as board members of America, Inc.? Sitting on one side of the table are his high-profile daughter, Ivanka, and her husband, Jared Kushner, a property developer turned so-called Secretary of Everything. On the other, a man called Steve Bannon. This one-time film producer and boss of the extreme right-wing website Breitbart News is now Trump's chief strategist. The inner circle is a motley crew, almost beyond satire, but not quite.
You know, I love my daughter Ivanka and her husband Jared. They always keep me so calm and make sure I don't do anything too crazy.
That's true, sir.
So, quick question, are they gone?
Yes.
Send in Steve Bannon.
Hello, Donald. I have arrived.
Hi, Steve. You look rested.
Thank you.
Comedians have found this White House a gift.
Today, when he entered the room, the crowd greeted him with a standing ovation, which lasted a full 15 minutes. And you can check the tape on that. Everyone was smiling. Everyone was happy.
It's the most bafflingly incompetent group of people in the White House who I've ever seen.
Robert Reich is a professor of public policy who served under 3 presidents, including as Bill Clinton's Secretary of Labor.
What we see in this White House is not only people who have no experience governing, but also something of a disdain for the institutions of government.
Bannon, Kushner, and their spats have been a storyline all their own in President Trump's White House reality show.
I have seen a lot of chaotic White Houses. I've worked in fairly chaotic White Houses. I've never encountered or viewed a White House that is quite as chaotic as Donald Trump's.
Thank you very much.
People are confused about their jobs. They are at each other's throats. They are leaking information like mad to the press.
Trump's supporters, of course, see it differently. He brings the skills of business to public life, making bureaucracy understand action.
Even in the Trump Organization, in his private company of some scale, he managed on the basis of chaos. He likes to have different pockets or centers of power that actually rival each other, and then he makes the determination. So the White House is not dissimilar in some ways from the Trump Organization. How much of that is a good thing, how much of it is too much, is probably still to be determined.
It's an unorthodox approach, but then Trump was elected to shake up Washington.
Protection of the nation from foreign terrorist entry into the United States. It's big stuff.
When it came to one of his most noteworthy campaign promises, though, that lack of traditional process led the president to come a cropper.
We got there about 3:30 p.m. When we got there was maybe like about 400 to 500 people there. By like 4:15, there was friends of mine that were coming to the airport. It was taking them an hour just to get there. People started parking their cars on the side, just walking there. Ended up being well over 10,000 people that were there. And it was nice to see the Muslim community, the Jewish community, the Christian community, the LGBT community, the Black Lives Matters community. It's like everybody stood together. And everybody was like standing together for like one sake, like pretty much saying like, he might be coming after the Muslims today, but is he going to be coming after you tomorrow?
The so-called Muslim travel ban was an executive order issued in Trump's first week in office. It banned entry to the US for people